Hello, my friend, and welcome to the study. As you might have noticed, I'm having some trouble with the stabiliser in my camera. I tried to have it repaired, but I'm going to have to take it in again. And in the meantime, you will have noticed that there haven't been videos from the study, but I decided to give you one today as best I can. I'm going to give you some nice history, a bit of a story, and some handwriting. And I would also like to thank the study patrons for the summer, the months of May, June, and July, the beautiful summer months of butterflies and flowers, sunshine, beaches, and birds, and restful, peaceful time in the cool library. So today we're going to look at 3 strange words: byrsa or byrsa, rape or rap, and piddle or piddle. Now these might not be what you think initially, and that's part of what makes them so interesting. They each have mysterious etymologies with concomitant myths, legends, and stories attached. We'll start with byrsa, which is Greek for hide, being an ox hide or the pelt of an animal, being bovine. Ancient authors treated it as the etymology for byrsa, B-Y-R-S-A, the fortified hill at the heart of Carthage, Dido's royal city. This citadel, legend has it, is named for the way the land was acquired on which it was built. The etymology, however, is debated, and legend and myth, though perhaps based on obscure snippets of actions, cannot be relied on. It may be a genuine Phoenician-derived name, reinterpreted by Greek folk etymology, and, if even further stories are to be believed, perpetuated to illustrate how the Greeks of the Bronze Age saw the sea-trading Phoenicians as untrustworthy or tricky. It may also be a later Greek gloss imposed on an existing Semitic place name to fit the story. Either way, the word choice anchored the foundation myth in the physical geography of the city of Carthage, turning the citadel itself into a permanent monument to Dido's cleverness. The story goes that when Dido and her followers arrived in the North African coast, she negotiated with the local Berber population for only as much land as a single ox hide could cover. Now Dido had had quite a long and difficult history, and it was her duty, her wish, her responsibility to bring her people who were from the eastern Mediterranean, to a safe home, a safe place that they could colonize and trade and go about their lives. And this request for as much land as a single ox hide could cover was granted to her by the Berbers of the North African coast, as an ox hide seemed a rather trivial piece of land. Dido then cut the ox hide into extremely thin strips and used them to encircle an entire hilltop, which became byrsa. This trick is presented in the text of the historical tradition for Dido's founding of Carthage, preserved primarily by Marcus Junianus Justinus, epitome of Pompeius Trogus. This is a 3rd century epitome of a 1st century BC history. So even Trogus and later Justinus had no knowledge of this founding myth, only that the story had perpetuated and was probably well known in local culture. This clever trick is posed as an act of metis, or cunning intelligence, placing Dido in the same tradition as Odysseus and Hermes, figures who win through wit rather than force. The text also frames it as sitting at a moral boundary. Technically honest, she got exactly what a hide could cover, but a clear violation of the spirit of the transaction. The episode possibly reflects an actual Phoenician land acquisition strategy, later mythologized and fed into the later Roman stereotype of fides punica, the Punic faith, the idea that Carthaginians, like their founder, achieved their ends through deceptive cleverness rather than honest dealings. It can be easily seen as a piece of Roman propaganda, given the Punic Wars and the long rivalry between these powers, as it can the trading wars between the Phoenician Carthaginians and their Greek customers. In post-colonial readings, the ox-hide trick has been reinterpreted as a colonization narrative told from the colonizer's viewpoint, with this deceptive land grab paralleling later European practices. There are essentially 2 competing derivations for this word byrsa. Greek folk etymology from byrsa, oxhide, the derivation the Dido legend itself relies on, and the one most ancient authors accepted at face value, or what most sources now favor, the Semitic Phoenician origin as the actual root, with candidates including the Phoenician BT or BRT, pronounced possibly Birt, meaning citadel or stronghold. And these are possibly based on the Phoenician word for citadel or on the Semitic word bostra, meaning steep slope. This word also appeared on Carthaginian currency. A Semitic word for a rocky height, sometimes linked to place names like Bosra or Bostra elsewhere in the Semitic world, also are candidates. Remembering then that Phoenician was one of the Semitic languages, whilst Greek is an Indo-European language, so the borrowing during the Bronze Age seems quite intriguing. One source frames it more simply. The name's origin is unknown, and the Dido legend created a dubitable link to the Greek word for oxide, but it's more likely a variation of the Phoenician barsat, meaning stronghold. There's actual epigraphic evidence bearing on this. The citadel's name appears on Carthaginian coinage, as we've written it here, and this is a genuine Semitic spelling from antiquity and not a Greek guess. As it is, it's the strongest piece of evidence supporting the Phoenician stronghold word. It shows Carthaginians themselves using a name that doesn't obviously derive from Greek at all. So what we can see happened is that Phoenician settlers named their citadel something like Bursat, fortress, height. Centuries later, Greek-speaking visitors or historians heard this name, recognized it as sounding like their own word for hide, byrsa, and the oxide trick story was either invented or attached to the site to explain this coincidence of the sound. And then later on, Justinus and Virgil both inherited and preserved that already folk etymologized version. Our next word, rape. What is rape geographically? A rape is an historic territorial subdivision, specifically of the county of Sussex in England. There were 6 of them: Hastings, Pevensey, Lewes, Bramber, Arundel, and Chichester. Each rape functioned as a self-contained administrative unit with its own headquarters, courts, and, in the 12th century, even its own sheriff. The etymology of this word remains unresolved. Unlike the word rape, as in the rape of Lucrece, from the Latin rapere, to seize, this administrative term of rape has a separate and disputed origin. And the origin remains unknown, but they appear to predate the Norman conquest. There are several competing theories on the origin of this word. The first one is that it is an early form of the word rope, and the divisions were so called because they were measured and allotted by the rope, with a Norman chronicler cited as corroboration. The second theory holds that the old German custom would be Saxon or Anglo-Saxon of defining the limits of the peace of popular open-air courts by stakes and ropes gave name first to the court and then to the area of its jurisdiction. There's a Dutch cognate, reep, applied to a judicial area, and even a place name in Cheshire, Rope, argued to derive from the same root in Danelaw. A third hypothesis is that the Icelandic Hreppr district or tract of land was the precedence for this word. This was proposed by 18th century scholar Edward Lye. However, his position was rejected in the New English Dictionary, and according to the English Place Name Society, is phonologically impossible. What a pity. Another one was the Old French rapper, to seize or take by force, from which we also have rapier, the sword. This has been suggested, though it seems less plausible. Though, as we're on the subject of land grabs in the byrsa, is worth mentioning. Other contenders for the origin of the land rape are a possible link to the Old English word rape, meaning harvest, from which we get reap, or a connection to the Danish word rapve, signifying a district. The last and perhaps most amusing word relating to a geographic district is piddle, as in a piddle of land. It is almost certainly a variant of pigtal. Pigtal, also spelled Pighttel, or piddle, pickle, pissle, and importantly piddle, is an archaic or dialectical English word meaning a small enclosed piece of land, typically a field or a paddock, often attached to a house, or bordered by the hedge. There are many attested spelling variants, including piddle, pighill, pighill, pigtal, piddle, pigtail, pickle, pickle, pingle, pigtal, pirkle, piddle, and the list goes on, all deriving from 13th century written sources, charters, and legal documents. How did pigtal become piddle? This is a case of ordinary sound shift and folk reanalysis, so it's not a separate word. Variants like pigtal and pighill were found in documents from around 1200, later evolving into words like piddle. So the T or the KT, the K cluster in pigtal, which is certainly ubiquitous in some older English, Middle English certainly. These were found to have eroded over time in regional pronunciation, resulting in something that sounds like the modern piddle. Silchester records a piddle of land given. It is most likely a small enclosed field, paddock, or close, likely adjoining a dwelling or church precinct. This was donated, and here you can see in the church right next to the Roman town. This fits the pattern seen elsewhere. An old East Anglian word dating from 1200 meaning a small piece of enclosed land commonly appeared in wills, charters, and enclosure records for exactly this kind of small gift of land clause. One record even gives a flavour of the phrasing. As we might expect, 3 little pigtals near the River Thames, opposite late Sir Edward Turner's house at Sunbury. The word wasn't confined to East Anglia. Besides Hampshire, the word pigtal is found in the North Country, the South Country, Norfolk, Suffolk, Cambridgeshire, Rutland, Huntingdonshire, Hampshire, Yorkshire, Lancashire, Essex, Berkshire, Bedfordshire, Northamptonshire. So a Hampshire document using pigtal or piddle is entirely consistent with known dialect distribution. And we can now put aside the notion of a cunning person who drank a lot of water before an acquisition agreement. Or can we? My friend, thank you for coming with me on this little journey into land grabs and etymology. Now I'm going to use some better paper and going to attempt in my best secretary hand to write some names. I would like now to give a most gracious and heartfelt thank you to the study patrons for May, June, and July. Thank you for your generous support throughout the summer and always. It's much appreciated. using our Jacques Herbin ink, Poussier Lune, which is a very mysterious or dreamy violet. I would like to thank everyone who has watched this video, everyone who's come to the study. That's you. Thank you for being here and sharing this today. Thank you to Pirate Carrie. Thank you. Thank you. Andreas, thank you. Thank you. Romulus, thank you. Thank you. Ben, thank you. Thank you. Joshua, thank you. Thank you. Theorem, thank you. Thank you. Elizabeth, thank you. Thank you. and Carman 1000. Thank you. Thank you. Sleep well, my friend. Be good to yourself. Be kind to others. And be extraordinary.